Very good. Jeff Van Gundy, our NBA analyst, is with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, and he is indeed ready to go. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. We are well. Obviously, we got two huge NBA stories intersecting here at one time. Let's start with the game that you guys are going to do. The ABC crew will be Saturday night in Oklahoma City. What is your expectation for Kevin Durant's return?
Well, I thought initially that he would get a great response, and Mike Green and I said that a couple of weeks ago on a game, and Mark Jackson vehemently disagreed. He thought he would get overwhelmingly booed, and then I heard from people like by the droves that said, "You guys are crazy if you think he's getting cheered in Oklahoma City when he returns." And so I think it'll be, from what I gather, pretty hostile. But I'm not sure that impacts the great player. I think Durant understands that when he was in Oklahoma City, he was absolutely beloved for his talent and his community service. And I would hate for him to think any different just because he comes back with what's perceived as the enemy right now.
Yeah, I do think people appreciate what he did away from the court, but they're gonna boo the player who left Oklahoma City. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that being said, with the emotion and everything attached to this, Jeff, from a head coaching standpoint, what does Steve Kerr do in this situation? Say nothing and just, hey, you go play a game, or does he involve himself in this in some way with KD?
Well, I don't think with a great player like Durant you have to say much. I think, obviously, they'll be playing back-to-back, but emotions will be high. I think Durant, what's hard is a lot of memories come back. You think that, you got it under control, but I would think all the memories, the close calls, the shared times with players and coaches alike will come flooding back when he enters the arena. And the difference about going to the visitors' locker room for the first time versus going, to the home locker room. I just think he has to make sure that if he can possibly do it, to remain as calm and as poised as he normally is. But I think that'll be a challenge.
Durant, of course, has played the Thunder twice this year, both games in Oakland.
And done well.
Golden State won both games. He's averaged 39.5 points in those games and shot 70% from the floor. So we'll see what winds up happening. How about from the Russell side of this, Jeff? One would have to assume that he is going to want this one, despite what he may say, a little more than he'll want an average game and will want to have a huge night. What would you expect from Russell Westbrook tomorrow night?
Well, I think you'll see the same type of play you've seen all year, which is, and really his whole career, which is attacking, relentless, and trying to put his team on the offensive end on his shoulders. Because as we saw down the stretch of the Cleveland game, Oladipo came up with some big shots, but it's Westbrook. He's got to create nearly every play, and he has come through remarkably this year to me, because they're a limited offensive team, but Westbrook, to me, with his relentlessness, has really elevated Oklahoma City to a much better record than I think anyone could have expected.
And for that reason, and I know there's a lot of season left, and this isn't the biggest deal in the world, but both Mike and I were really stunned that he isn't a starter in the All-Star game. If I had a vote right now, he would be the MVP of the league. Mike, would you also?
I would absolutely agree.
Jeff, if you had a vote right this minute, who's the MVP of the league?
Harden.
Because he has his team farther along, would that be the reason?
Well, I think Harden has better shooting around him, right? So certainly offensively, they're a more talented team. But just last year, they were a 500 team with Dwight Howard. And James Harden, I think, has not only played exceptionally offensively from an efficiency standpoint, but he's put a lot into the defensive side this year. I think he understands, as a guy who's won, that you have to defend to win. And so I think his efficiency on the offensive end and his recommitment to playing better defense, I think gives him the slight edge over Westbrook. But listen, you can make a very, very compelling case for Westbrook, and quietly you can make a case for Isaiah Thomas as well.
Jeff Van Gundy, our ESPN NBA analyst, joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Now over to the Charles Oakley situation, a guy you coached for 3 years with the Knicks. First, let's just start with the situation that happened the other night and just your general thoughts about that.
Well, I was blessed. I coached Charles for 8 years as a head coach and as an assistant coach. And the thing I'll always be grateful for with Charles is he, Mark Jackson, and Patrick Ewing, when I came to New York as a 26 or 27-year-old assistant coach from college, he gave me respect far before I ever deserved it. And I think that's what he did for, to me, you can judge a lot about a person's character by how he treats those that can do really nothing for him. Charles has always been the champion of the everyday type of guy. And I think that's why when he got up the next day, he regrets, I'm sure, putting his hands on security because they didn't do anything to him. They were just doing their job, just like he did his job. But I love Charles Oakley. I love everything he stands for. I thought, unfortunately, I don't know any more about why what happened, but I think everyone agrees that it's sad, but there can be a positive conclusion. And all I think it takes between Charles and Mr. Dolan is empathy and compassion for the other's point of view. And if so, how good would the Knicks look if they had Charles Oakley night here before the season ended and just put to bed whatever their differences are? I think the Garden would be rocking because you guys understand what he meant to the New York Knicks teams of the 90s. His impassioned play every single night. There's never been a better big man help defender than Charles Oakley, and he put the line every single night. And for that, I'll always love Charles and what he stood for.
I could not thoroughly agree more with every word you just said, and yet I would say that there is no human being on the planet for whom it is less likely they will have a night in his honor at Madison Square Garden this year than Charles Oakley, with the exception of tonight when I think every fan is going to show up wearing an Oakley jersey, and they're going to be bringing in signs that I really hope that security doesn't take away supporting Oakley so long as they're not profane or anything like that, and because that has just been the history here, and that's the reality of the situation. Jeff Van Gundy is with us. Maybe of more immediate significance to the team, Jeff, Mike and I quote you all the time. Years ago, when you were coaching the Rockets, we went down to Houston, and we interviewed you, and you told us the most important relationship in sports is always the one between the coach and the best player on the team. If that relationship works, you have a chance to succeed. Now, Phil Jackson is not the coach of the Knicks right now, but his relationship with Carmelo Anthony is just startlingly bad, and it seems to be generally pushed by Phil. So as you sit and watch how that whole thing is playing out, what is your perspective on that and how it impacts the basketball team?
Well, there's no doubt, I think, that any of those relationships have an impact because what has been no one's talking about, hey, we got to do better offensively in this area or defensively here or, rebound it better. The whole talk has been about tweets and relationships. And I think as the leader of the franchise, I don't understand why you would tweet anything. If you have something to say to somebody, just go to them and tell them. And if you do think it's time to move forward and move past the guy being there, even when he has a no trade clause like Anthony does, go and talk to him about it. I don't think I guess he tweeted again maybe yesterday about that his tweet was misunderstood.
Right.
And not being on Twitter, I don't really know what that means other than, it's probably better that you could just stop tweeting your thoughts and just tell the people that are important in this situation, Anthony and his representatives, what you're thinking, what your plan is, and how you plan to go about it. And I think just being straightforward and unambiguous is probably the best route. Because Carmelo Anthony, whether you think it's time for him to go or you think it's time for him to stay, I don't think anyone can question how good he's been and also how well he's handled this situation. He hasn't been drawn into fighting fire with fire. So, listen, I think Phil is obviously a successful, smart person, and just more human interaction and talking will help resolve it more so than, maybe passive-aggressive comments through Twitter.
Wow, what a novel approach, actual face-to-face conversation. I wonder when we lost that. But you are 1,000% correct on that. From a basketball, now let's go on the court, Jeff. I said this whole situation, in my opinion, hurts them. Now, I didn't think Phil, being in the president position, was going to be able to bring in a lot of free agents. I didn't think they were going to want to go there now. And I'm talking max guys, real difference makers. I mean, they're going to look at, I think they're going to look at that situation in New York and say, look at the butting in the heads with the top player right now, and Carmelo Anthony. Why, if they're offering me a max deal and 6 other teams are offering me a max deal, why in the hell would I go to New York? Are they going to have are they going to continue to have a problem getting top players there?
Well, that's a good question. I think I don't know how certain people think in this regard, what's important to them. If the money's equal, though, there's so much good about New York, as you guys well know. It's an arena like no other. It's a fan base like no other. When you're great in New York, I would say it supersedes being great in any other NBA town. So I think there's many things to sell. But if there are these thoughts that, there's issues, it's up to the Knicks to address them so that they can put their franchise in the best possible light, because this is a great basketball town, New York is, and you just don't want to get caught up in all the clutter that sometimes can happen there. And so I think it's up to you to, or as Jeff Hornacek and Phil Jackson working in concert, to make it as smooth for the players as possible off the floor.
Yeah, and that they could not be doing a worse job of that. I'll say it. I mean, because it's hard for everyone else to say it. I mean, listen, for a generation, they've won one playoff series. So obviously all of those advantages have not worked out. All right, Jeff, not to take a serious situation and turn it into a funny one, but if there's anyone who knows how hard it can be to restrain Charles Oakley when he's angry, it is you. So I wonder how many times people have referenced.
Oh, you guys are going low. You're going low on my bout of temporary insanity, are you? Okay, I like it.
We're going rogue. How many times since the Oakley event of the other night have people brought up the legendary event where you wound up sort of wrapped around the leg of Alonzo Mourning?
Well, first of all, this is one of the reasons why I love Oakley, right? So I'm making an absolute fool of myself, and he comes to my rescue, right? All the while chuckling a little bit, like he was looking at me like, are you serious? But I think this is a better, telltale sign of Oakley. My third year with the Knicks, my first year under Coach Riley, as an assistant, you have to referee a lot. So we had some physical practices, and one day Oakley found himself on the second team matched up against Ewing. And I called a foul under my basket in benefit of Ewing as Oakley stripped him of the ball. As the ball bounced free, Charles was unhappy with my call, said so with a curse word here or there, and kicked the ball, not at me, but it came straight at me, and it was a nut shot of epic proportions. So then I yelled back at Oakley some words that would have gotten me in trouble with my mom, and he comes at me. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, man, it's about to end right here and right now, right? And he came over there so apologetic that, he kicked it to me. He grabbed me in a hug, and said, "Hey, I am so sorry." And it just, I think because he's so big and so strong and so tough, and you saw the persona on the court, people can forget what a cuddly, kind, loyal friend he was, and great to coach, always so loyal to coaches. So, that's what I think about. So, yeah, I'm glad he rescued me from my bout of insanity. And most people, like if I have never met somebody, it's the first thing they bring up. And what are you going to say? Yeah, that was a good look for me. I looked like a moron out there. And thankfully, Mourning didn't have carte blanche just to kill me, because he certainly could have.
You're the best, Jeff. Thanks a million. We'll be watching tomorrow night. Thanks you.